That's what I see in my classroom.
Thank you so much. We're going to call the meeting to order. We want to extend a warm welcome to United Black Fund. Thank you so much for joining us today. The first item of business is to have a chair pro tem for the meeting.
You take the roll first. You have to take the roll first.
Well, we can take the roll. Commissioner Miller,
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez, present. Co-chair Adams,
Present.
co-chair Zayed.
Present.
Okay, all the committee members are present. Now let's determine chair pro tem.
I move to have co-chair Adams be the chair pro tem of tonight's meeting. I second that.
Oh, no, we can have some discussion.
Sure.
I would like to open a discussion. I think that you are the CPC co-chair. And I think with that, you're the ex officio of the meeting. So I think it would be advantageous to explore options.
Okay, thank you for that. I just want to add that during the time that we've been working with UBF, not very many commissioners have been involved in the process. So a lot of people aren't really up to speed on what's going on with the process. And I believe because co-chair Adams has been an active and engaged member of the commission, working alongside everyone to move the work forward, that he has the knowledge and also he's up to speed on what's going on with the grants process and budget process. So he's never really stopped or had any breaks at all. So he knows exactly what's going on and can move the meeting forward efficiently and effectively. So that's why I would like to see Co-Chair Adams chair tonight's meeting. And also, there aren't at least three members of this committee. So, until you guys have three official members, I think it's good if we just kind of like rotate it.
So I'm going to say this for the record. You are ex officio members of all committees. And also in our rules, that makes you able to be a third member. However, you are not able to physically man a committee. You're not able to chair a committee because you're the co-chair of the full commission.
I definitely disagree with that because we've done that in the past and there's no rule stating that we cannot, because we are, like you said, ex officio members because you guys don't have a full committee yet. So I think that right now we could just move forward with the vote. Let's move forward with the vote. Yes, I think.
Just voting?
Sure.
What do you need?
The vote.
Oh, there's only 4 people here, you just call it. It's on the bottom of the agenda, the names.
I mean, I think that's the point.
Commissioner Miller.
I'm sorry, please repeat what we're voting on.
The question is to have Co-Chair Adams chair the meeting for today.
I sustain. Co-chair.
Co-Chair Adams.
I'm not voting. I'm not the co-chair who is standing on the committee to give it one.
Okay, so we're gonna reflect the minutes because I think you were mentioned, but Co-Chair Zayed.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez, no,
Does not pass.
it doesn't pass.
Well, I'm okay with chairing the meeting tonight.
That would still be, my answer would still be a no for my vote. So I think we really need to move the meeting forward.
Well, we have to select the chair pro tem. And I believe it needs to be someone who has been involved in the process for the past 6 months and who knows what is actually going on the Budgets and Grants Committee.
I think that's a valid point. I also believe when you transition chairs, you pass any knowledge that you receive to the next chair. That's typically how boards work, and that's how governance works.
To the committee members, it's only for tonight. You just have to get through this agenda, so just, it's not a permanent position. It's just for this evening.
But then we have the election of the committee chair. That's gonna be like a few. So-
I nominate Commissioner Rodriguez.
Thank you so much for your vote. We're going to move to the next item of business.
They have to vote, so you have to nominate again. But the previous motion failed, so what that means is that you would then have to make another motion to nominate a chair pro tem, and then the committee would have to vote again.
Okay, so I move to nominate Commissioner Rodriguez to serve as the pro chair tem for April 22nd, the Budget and Grants meeting held at our CPC office. Do we have a second at this time?
I second that.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hence none, we're gonna call for the vote of the pro chair tem for our meeting. Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez, aye. Commissioner Zayed,
Aye.
thank you so much. The next item of business is the lawful meeting statement. The meeting of the Cleveland Community Police Commission is a lawful meeting under section 605.04 of the codified ordinances. No person with purpose to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting shall do any act which obstructs or interferes with the due conduct of such meeting. Members of the public are invited to speak in accordance with the public comment rules. Disruptions, including but not limited to speaking out of turn and/or making loud utterances that interferes with the due conduct of the lawful meeting may constitute a misdemeanor and a violation of section 65.04. If this meeting is disrupted, I will call for a recess and the room will be cleared. Persons who violate the city ordinances and commit misdemeanors may be subject to prosecution. When the body is able to return from recess, then in compliance with the Ohio Open Meeting Act and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances, the meeting will be open to the public. The next item of business is the election of official committee chair.
Because there aren't 3 permanent members, I believe that this should be postponed until you guys receive those 3 permanent committee members.
We can postpone it for the sake of the order. Let's review the meeting agenda. Are there any other items? Hence now, we're going to accept the agenda with unanimous consent. At this time, we have not received any minutes for approval. The next item of business is public comment.
I don't think there's anybody signed.
So on the sheet, it says
Oh, there-
Dale.
Oh, Dale, I didn't know if you were with UBF or not. So
I wasn't
apologize.
with them.
Okay.
Would you like to take the microphone?
I don't even know if I want to. Hello, everyone. My name is Dale Snyder. I'm with Roll Gold Inc., which is a nonprofit, an acronym for recidivism on the decline. I spoke with Miss Michelle, and she asked me to come down to the meeting today and tomorrow. I'm not sure what this is about. It's my first time here, and I'm one of the grantees, and I just came to get acclimated with the process. And hello to everyone.
I'm sorry, what was the name of the organization?
Roll Gold Inc. Yes. All right.
Thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to connecting and you attending further meetings.
Sure.
Since we don't have any further public comment, we'll go to new business, which is the presentation by UBF.
Hello, how are you? Before you start, make sure you introduce yourself, your name. You have to hit the button. If it's
So good evening. How are you all this evening? Yeah, can you all hear me? Hold on, I just want to make sure, is this volume good? Okay, perfect. My name is Cecil Lipscomb. I am the president and CEO of United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland. It is our distinct honor to be presenting in front of this committee today on the results of our grants and allocations process in conjunction with the Cleveland Police Commission. Processes begin sometimes with bumps and bruises because the trail hasn't been blazed. And when I look at the work that you all had accomplished prior to us being contacted and applying to be considered as a part of the grant making process with the commission, I want to commend you all for accomplishing what you have. Okay, we will review some of those numbers today. Those are should be feathers in your cap, I should just say. And so, what UBF has as a part of our process is about 40 years of grant making under our belt. And so, this was a purpose or the reason why we were contacted and applied is that we could present some, let's say, best practices, help work alongside this commission and make recommendations. And I would hope that after you hear the results of my team here, that you all would agree that I think the mission was accomplished. And again, our role was to work alongside you all in partnership. I promise you I stayed out of the way, and sometimes presidents and CEOs interject where it's not necessary. I have trusted my team, and I'll introduce them. Celeste Terry, our grants manager, and Twyla Turner, our director of programs resources. So with that said, I'm welcome the opportunity for questions and answers at the end of this presentation, but we will just discuss today the operations in partnership with this commission and in particular members of this committee to accomplish the task at hand. Thank you.
but good evening. I'm Celeste Terry, the grant manager for the United Black Fund. What we're going to do is just take you through a presentation and kind of show you how we got to the process that we did. We will talk about the overview of the Police Commission, the grant making for 2020-23, background, the contract opportunity that we were provided, UBF's role as an intermediary, the grant process, award recommendations, next steps, and then we'll have some Q&A if there are any. And for some of you that might be new, the commission was established in 2015 as part of the consent decree between the Department of Justice and the City of Cleveland. And in 2021, over 59% of Cleveland voters voted and approved Issue 24, which would make the commission of permanent civilian oversight once the police department comes out of the consent decree. And Issue 24 really makes sure that there's oversight with discipline, hiring practices, and procedures with the police department. And with Issue 24, there is a percentage of the budget within Section 115-5 that accounts for grant money going to community organizations in 3 categories, which would be violence prevention, restorative justice, and mediation. And really the overriding goal for all of this is that the organizations will be teaching the community how to have less interaction, negative interaction with the police. And so now we'll talk about what the CPC grant overview process is about. And I won't read the whole thing, but some of the highlights and some of the important things to note are that organizations have to be 501c3s. If they do not have that, they have to have a fiscal agent, and they have to submit a letter along with the contract indicating how they will be working together and making sure that the applicant's program is in the city of Cleveland and really serves the residents of Cleveland. They also need to demonstrate that they have a track record, that they have some established partnerships, that they have key stakeholders, that they basically have been doing this work for a while, so that they have a track record, as I said. And also want to make sure that there are no conflicts with commissioners and the police commission. The CPC grant awards go up to $50,000, but if they do go over that, then there's another process. So we've been encouraged to keep the applications under $50,000 so that it doesn't have to go through those extra steps. And some of the things that that we want to make sure that the grant applicants know that it's not a multi-year application, and that as we talk a little bit further, you'll see that some of the applicants from 2023 have also applied for 2024 as well. And it's just going to be a good mix of organizations that will be included. And so the 3 areas that are for the funding areas are restorative justice. So that would include people having situations where they have a chance to come together and resolve those conflicts and kind of promote some healing. Violence prevention, using evidence-based information that's going to help reduce the violence in the community, improve social conditions, and just looking at all the situations that really contribute to underlying situations that contribute to violence prevention, because there's a lot of them. And mediation, really having constructive situations where people can come together and work out this solution for conflicts. In 2023, that was the first year that the commission did the grants, and they selected 26 out of 90 applications. And the grants range from $25,000 up to $50,000, and the total awards were $1,080,000. And so now we'll get into a little bit more about the exciting part, for us, which was, and it was a long process as well. So in 2024, the commissioners realized that they had a lot of time constraints and that they really were up against the wall dealing with a lot of issues. And they still had to make the grant process happen, but they realized that this was a tall order for them. And so one of the commissioners contacted me in February and said that he would like for UBF to try for this opportunity. And so we did, and so we had to apply, and RFP went out, so we applied, and we went through the vetting process. We were here several times for meetings, and we were always unanimously approved. And we had to go through vetting with City Council and the final vote with City Council. And really, it was a good fit, which is why we were contacted, because these are the organizations that we deal with, that we have been dealing with for over the last 40 years. And a number of the organizations that CPC funds are organizations that we also have funded at some point. So it was a perfect fit. And I'm going to introduce now Twyla Turner, our Director of Program Resources, and she'll talk about UBF as an intermediary.
Thank you, Celeste. And good evening to you all. So I'm going to talk about our role as an intermediary. Apologies that this went right. But I want to explain what an intermediary is, and it is what Cecil said, is us working in partnership so that we are working with you all to be in between you and the community to provide that support in the grant making process, as well as the execution of seeing the grants through. So our role as a contracted grant intermediary for CPC is that we issue the request for the grant proposals in collaboration with you all. We also assisted in the application making process, the evaluation proposal of the proposals, making the award recommendations, and also to managing the contracts and monitoring, tracking grantee performance. And we did understand initially when we started this process that we wouldn't have the final decision on who was awarded, but we would work together based on our area of expertise. In our conversations and collaboration with you all, we come to a collective decision on who would move forward with a grant award. We also to work with you all to identify when it's time for the grantees to receive their funds, but you would do that. And you will report outcomes to City Council regarding the grantees, but we'll help to support to gather that information so that it's clear and it's in a format in which could be digestible to the council. We started initially with the timeline and just based on direction from the commission in our conversation and walking through the process together, our timeline was expanded just a little bit. But what we went through was having an informational meeting, so we had the opportunity alongside of the commissioners to be able to talk with any individuals who were interested in applying for this process, to be able to ask questions, to share what the process would look like, and also to just provide a constant reminder that this grant opportunity was a reimbursable grant. We recognize that from 2023 through conversation and collaboration with you all, that was a concern of the community, and so our ability to communicate and reiterate that during the informational meeting proved to be a good outcome for us because we had the opportunity to receive some applicants from 2023 apply again this time, and then a few newer ones who also were aware of the opportunity to now apply for hardship. A part of our evaluation process is that we went through your grant application, and we took the application and created questions based on the application. We had 7 different areas. And those areas included technical ability, outcomes and reporting, the community impact, partnerships and collaboration, the project description, the funding and budget, and then of course, if the organizations had any letters of support. What we required out of the 115 as the maximum score is that at least a minimum of 40 were automatically moved someone to a site visit. Those that scored 39 or lower, we discussed as a organization and then also too with the committee to talk about the areas of opportunity that could be provided to some of those who scored lower to be able to consider them for at least having a site visit.
Sweet. I got you.
So just based on acknowledging that you all have not had the opportunity to sign your conflict of interest agreements, we won't share the organizations that we are recommending move forward, but what we want to do is give you a high-level overview of the applications, where they fall per the categories that you have determined for granting awards, and then the dollar amounts associated with that, and the number of organizations. So in total, we had 50 applications. Of that 50, 41 were recommended for awards. 18 of those were from your 2023. So we commend you on selecting the organizations that you did, because we found the same organizations to be just as credible and felt like they should be awarded grant awards this year as well. For violence prevention, we had 29 organizations that we'd like to recommend for funding, and the grant ranges from $22,000 to $45,000. Of the restorative justice category, we had 8 organizations and a total of $360,000. And again, same dollar amount ranging for the grant awards. For mediation, there were 4 organizations, and that category is small, not because we only found 4 organizations, just the applications that were received. We didn't have a lot for mediation. We had a lot for violence prevention, and when we took a look at who you awarded last year, it was very similar. And the grants range from 22 to 45,000. What we can say is that based on the applications, based on the process that we've gone through, starting with that informational meeting and making sure that it was very clear on the reimbursement process, having the opportunity to do the site visits, and also to coaching some of the grant applicants on how to complete the application. We're proud to say that only 9 didn't get recommended for awards. And of that, a few of them just didn't have a complete application, or they just really weren't a good fit. So I think we did collectively as a team and partner, I did a good job in identifying organizations who are committed to ensuring that they are going to reduce the negative interactions between the police and the community.
And so our next steps will be having a full day summit on May 28th. Because what we discovered is that the organizations are not accustomed to having a contract and having the city process. They're used to the standard kind of grant applications. And so we're going to use this opportunity this full day to really explain the contract grant experience, outline the reporting requirements, defining the outcomes and tracking. We're really working with them with data and to make sure we get good data for you all. And talking about finalizing the reimbursement process, because that's something I know that you all are working on as well. And we also want to make sure that we clarify that for the 2024 recipients as well. And then we're looking at starting the new cycle in August 2025, as Commissioner Zayed had discussed with us. And so we're also looking at ways that maybe we can help you remove some of the barriers for some of the organizations. Maybe it's we will distribute the money, but we can have those conversations. But just looking at it and making it a lot easier for the organizations, because it is a daunting process for them. And so if you have any questions, we will entertain them right now.
So I know that you guys have been working on it. Is there anything that you would like to add as well?
No, they were very thorough.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm sorry, the mics are all, but I wanted to just, I noticed that your slide, I believe it had first category, violence prevention, 983,000. The second category, maybe restorative, was it 360? And then 157. So according to our budget, I think we only have 1,154,000. I think this adds up to 1,500. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, so we're gonna be working with Commissioner Zayed to look at who's actually gonna be getting those funding amounts.
Also, so for clarification, these are just like
This is just,
the groups that you all have
That
like in
we
the final
recommended,
pool,
yes.
and then you're gonna make the decisions to get it to where
yes,
what we have. Okay,
we'll be working with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so I know that you mentioned in your presentation about 2023 grantee support. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes, actually, we just came on board for 2024, so we are learning a lot from Commissioner Zayed for 2023. So a lot of that information is information that they have and they've been discussing with us. So we don't know a lot about 2023, but we're learning about it.
And I would add that there were barriers for those grantees from 2023. So the information session in May, UBF has agreed to allow the 2023 applicants to come, or grantees to come and learn more information and hopefully solve the issues that they have with receiving their funding so they can move forward with the process.
If I can add, it was clear that there needed to be further clarification around reimbursable grants.
Mhm.
It's a sacrifice for small to medium-sized organizations to put money first and then to get reimbursed.
Yeah.
And so, knowing that we want to make sure that we work with the commission to educate, further explain, support in any way possible that transition that some people are accustomed to, not having to pay for grants or processes up front and get reimbursed.
Well, we thank you so much for partnering with us. I definitely think that workshop is going to be very helpful, especially to our grantees. So thank you for providing the clarification that you're not working with 2023, because I know we had a motion and I thought that you may be working with them as well. So it's only 2024.
Yes.
Okay.
And then also, when we went before city council, initially we were supposed to be, UBF was supposed to be under a 1-year contract, but it was voted on at city council that we would support this process for a minimum of 2 years. So that would be 24 and 25.
Okay.
I have a question. So you guys indicated that there were grantees who had incomplete applications or maybe kind of didn't meet that bar. Are you guys open to maybe reaching out to those individuals to kind of help the system with becoming prepared for the next grant cycle?
Absolutely. That's something.
Yeah. And I just want to go back to it. So part of our process in going through the application evaluation and the site visits is that we recognize that there were some grant organizations who applied who, based on their application, may not have had the opportunity to really articulate what it is that they were doing. So we gave them the opportunity through a site visit. And even then, we recognized that some of those individuals needed the opportunity to be able to really develop their program a little bit more. And so when you see our recommended list, you'll see that some have smaller amounts. And that's because we'd like to be able to give them the opportunity to have funding to develop their program, to then come back to you and say, hey, I'm ready now to apply for a $50,000 grant. So we really, I mean, again, it's only 9 who didn't make it. We really did the best that we could to ensure that quality organizations with support could still get grant funding from you all.
Thank you. In fact, one of them was here. That's what we're quite a bit here. Yes.
Well, I don't know if you want to come and share your experience. We would love to hear from you. And please share how it's benefiting your organization and your community.
Sure.
I know it's impromptu.
It is, that's fine.
Look like you're ready for the job.
You wanna do that before the conflicts? Or he's
Well,
a
no.
potential awardee
Oh,
for
you're
this
potential-
cycle.
Are you?
Oh, okay. I thought you was for last cycle.
We haven't done the 2024 conflicts yet. So
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you received funding last year. I mean, yeah.
No, they will be for.
For this upcoming
Yeah,
contract.
yeah.
Okay.
He's potentially on their list, so
Okay. Okay.
just wanna make sure.
Sorry. Thank you. Good catch. Good
Yeah.
catch.
Any further comments or questions?
So I know, I mean, I'm quiet because I'm aware of what's been happening. So, but I do think, this is our first budget and grants meeting in, God, I don't know how long. So I think, it's important at this meeting that we know things, but let's make sure that we're informing the public. And so, we just want to make sure that they can follow what they need to follow from home, just to keep that in mind. Because I know we're having our conversations, but we want to make sure the public knows.
We continue to look forward to working with you. Thank you so much for all you have done. It makes an impact, and we look forward to our continued partnership.
Thank you all.
Can I just ask one more question? And this is really more so for the public, but so I know, so what we have now is the commissioners have conflict of interest forms. I think we have a few commissioners that still need to turn those in. So just to explain the process, so that would be the next step? And then after you have those conflict of interest forms, can you just kind of go through sort of like what happens after you get those conflict of interest forms from all the commissioners?
So once we get the conflict of interest forms, we'll send you our recommended list for grant awards. And then if you approve, then we go through the next process with Michelle to get them ready for their contracts. Invite them to that meeting on the 28th. They have the opportunity to decline before coming to that meeting, but then we'll walk them through the process there and provide some training as well. So that would be the next process. And they'll also get communication informing them of those steps.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I won't complain about a nice day.
I'm not, that's what I told them.
So we briefly discussed the recruiter forms. It was sent out to commissioners. We may be still waiting on a few, and then we can proceed forward. The next item of business is a CPC budget update.
I just want to, again, to educate the public. So these conflict of interest forms, that we went through a training about the, basically what a conflict of interest will be with us as a public body. And so what we're essentially looking for we want to make sure that none of the commissioners, so the way that this process works with a body like ours is that if a commissioner has like relatives, like they're like close family members, like mom, dad, brother, sister, that type of close family, some type of like financial benefit, interest in their relationships with those organizations, they would have to recuse themselves. And so why we're taking the steps that we're taking is because what has to happen is that particular commissioner cannot be involved with any part of the process. So that would be developing questions, interviewing, definitely not voting. And so what we learned last time was to make sure that we do that early on, because we in the past had to disqualify some grants because we had not done that sooner. And so what we'll do is we'll fill out these forms. We will have a conversation with the law department. They will check our affiliations, and then they will make a determination if we have conflicts with organizations. And so just so the public is aware, is that how that works, and that's why it works that way. So there could be a scenario, well, say I work for CMSD, and say if CMSD apply for a grant, if we have, that wouldn't necessarily mean that CMSD would have to be recused, would have to be disqualified, but I could recuse myself from the process completely, and they could still get their grant. So we're just trying to make sure that we are making it possible for as many community organizations to get the grants as possible. And so for the public, that's how this conflict of interest works, and that's why we have to do it, because we can't have commissioners basically voting on grants that they might have some type of improper, unethical relationship with. So just so the public is aware of what that is.
Thank you. We want to ensure that we're fair and impartial. The next item is the CPC budget. Jason, all yours.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I think I got them.
Pass these down. I don't think you have that one. You have this, no one? That's where it went. I was like, where did those go? You have this one though? Yeah, okay. All right. And you each have one of each of these? Okay. All right. So, starting with this document here, this is pages from what's called the Mayor's Budget Book. This covers our 2025 appropriations as it went to council and was considered by council from the mayor's office. As you can see here, our total 2025 budget proposed by the mayor's office was $2,268,480. That's on what shows as page 129 on here. It's the second page in your packet. As a line item within that is $1,182,340 for community grants. So to get our operating budget, you have to take that $1,182,000 and subtract it from the $2,268,000, which leaves us about a little over $1 million in operating budget. What you'll see is if you go to what's listed as page 128 in the mayor's budget book, so that's on the back side of the first page, you can see salaries and wages. There's a total there of $647,766, and underneath that is benefits, $242,484. So if you add those two totals together, you come up with what the total line item is for what it costs for your staff here in a year. So when you take that away from our million, it does not leave a lot for anything else, right? So that's the gist of our budget. It's mostly personnel. You get about $1 million a year. That's the minimum that the ordinance 115.5 says is allotted. That is what council has deemed appropriate to allot us at this time, is that $1 million operating budget. So that is that overview of this. You should know that there was a memo here. Last year's commission at the end of the last term voted to ask council for an additional $300,000, roughly $350,000 for salaried personnel, and a little bit more into what we would consider outside professional services, which is consultant costs. Those additional fund requests were denied. It came up in the court today that the monitor sees that as inappropriate in some ways. And so we'll see what happens now that it's become a talking point in the court, if there are other avenues to get this $350,000. But what we asked for is an additional community engagement coordinator position, because one person for 325,000 plus residents is just not a good coverage, and it's not typical of other departments that have resources allocated to community engagement. They have multiple people, recognizing that the population, and there's so many diverse communities, you need a few more. And we asked for a second policy analyst because one of our critical components of our work right now is police policy. And it's an area where we have a backlog. So we have roughly a dozen policies in the policy committee that we believe having an additional policy analyst would help move those along a little bit faster. So those were the two asks. And you could see the cost of personnel, if you pay them a living wage, it quickly eats into your operating budget. So it's no small ask to ask for full-time personnel, because you have about a 50% fringe rate. So if you're paying $60,000, it ends up being $100,000 out of your budget when you're talking about their benefit and pension and anything, roughly, right? So those are not exact numbers, but they're good planning numbers. So that is where we're at right now with 2025. So any questions on 2025 budget?
No concern. I brought up my concern last meeting, and you stated that it was a city error regarding the staff.
That is correct. So I could show you what you're, so here, they use a computer system, right? And they enter our staff in the system, and I'll pass out what our staffing actually is. And this came up at council. If you look at this here, the staffing budget breakdown, right? This is more detailed into how much budgeted pay without benefits each position is getting, what the pay was in 2024, right? And then you'll see two things here. It's called a working title and a civil service title, and this is where people get confused, even council members who've been dealing with it for a while, right? Civil service titles are the official position that the city classifies jobs in, right? So there can be a lot of different jobs that fall into what we call project coordinator. Project coordinator is kind of the generic civil service rank that most city employees hold. And so what that means is you can see their working title, right? There's office manager, senior policy analyst, senior marketing and communications, right? I can call my position whatever is fit for the market, right? Whatever the terminology is that's appropriate for the job that they're going to do. But civil service tells me, when I give them job description, what civil service title they will hold, right? It's not a decision that's made here. If I send civil service a job description, they say this, based on the work duties, this is what it classifies as in civil service. So that's where that comes in. Now, why it shows as two administrative managers is because executive director is a civil service title. It's an unclassified civil service title. For the CPC, it's never been set up in the system. So they don't, when they print it, it just, the closest thing they can do right now is just show an administrative manager, right? But technically, you only have one administrative manager position and one executive director. Executive director is a true civil service title, right? So that gives you two top tier positions, one of them being a civil service administrative manager, one of them being an executive director. So that's what the confusion was. They also have the numbers off with the project coordinators because an assistant administrator, because civil service changed the classification when we hired our office manager. They weren't aware of that when they did the budget book. So that happened after the budget book was printed. So we no longer have an assistant administrator. We have an office manager. That's what civil service told me that position will be. So it is just a clerical miscommunication, but our staffing budget breakdown is 100% correct of what civil service positions, how many civil service positions, and what our total is. In fact, the reason that we are running a little bit over in this year's budget for personnel because we had vacancies and we added an assistant director of law, right? So what the budget book says we're allotted is we're gonna spend a little bit more than that, but we'll be okay because of the vacancy. So we've had a vacancy in the executive director position pay for 4 months. Each month is $10,000 that we're not spending, so we'll cover all our overages. And then in 2025, or when they do the 2026, they'll reconcile this and submit it correctly to council. So right now, we're okay money-wise, even though the positions don't quite align. So hopefully that resolves some of the,
Okay.
yeah.
Even with the attorney.
Yes, even with the attorney, we are good. We are running, we will be fine. In fact, we will probably end of the year with a little bit of surplus in the positions. Not enough to hire someone else, but a little bit of money.
So I have a question. Say in the event that we do an executive director, so that either you would stay or that person will be in that position. So there shouldn't be any change with that. What about the administrative manager?
The administrative manager, so we still have in
So
the
those names
charter,
allotted.
the administrative manager is the civil service title, but what that is in the planning, when you guys have voted every year, is the assistant director position,
Okay.
right? So that is classified as an administrative manager, but the working title will be assistant director.
So
'cause that's
what if
they will
we
do.
hire those two positions, let's just say the city processes take a little
Sure.
time, 60 days, in 60 to 90 days, we hire both of those positions. Will we still be in a good financial position?
Yes,
Okay.
because right now, my current pay salary is not executive director pay. So I am at the administrative manager pay scale, right? So you are, right now, you have 130,000 for an executive director, which you guys voted and we did fair market value for that, right? It's lower than what executive directors at the city get paid. That scale goes into the 200,000s, right? So you're on the low end of the city scale, but it's competitive in Cleveland. You know, nonprofit executive directors are around 125, 130, 140. I've seen them as high as 150, but it's competitive enough to get a good amount of candidates. But you're not spending that money right now because I'm being paid at the administrative manager level. So that is correct. You will be able to accommodate two people at this pay rate.
In court.
Yes,
And then
yes,
others.
yes.
Okay, without.
Whether I'm
Okay.
here or not, you still have those
Okay,
two spaces allotted in your budget.
okay. And
Yes.
the attorney. Okay.
Yes, and the attorney. And the attorney is an assistant director of law, right? They're paid out of law's budget, but we reimburse them the majority of that. So you can see here, Mark Griffin, the law director, graciously agreed to do a split with us on that, right? Which was wonderful. We get the brunt end of it because we hired an attorney whose market value was a little higher. So that's where it took it off the balance. So we paid 58,700 of that arrangement and 41,300 comes from law. So that may change in the next budget. It may be decided that all of that comes to our budget. And that's something that council will have to determine. But we're months away from beginning that planning cycle. That'll happen in August or September. We'll start looking at 2026 budget. So.
Through the chair, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding, until that position is filled, that executive director position, we're banking an additional 10K per month, is that correct?
Roughly in the salary, that's not, plus the benefits too. So in that line item, you're banking, yes. So you have room there to be okay this year. You will not go over. And in fact, we've never gone over because we've always had a vacancy. Hopefully this year will be the last year where we have vacancies. We've worked really hard. You guys all know we've worked really hard to fill every vacancy in this office. And right now we're just a step away from having a full, complete staff for this term, which will be wonderful. So.
You have an extra staffing.
Yes. And I just wrote on it a little bit.
That's okay, I mean, else know this.
So that is the 2025. And then you also have the run of 2024, what we actually spent, so you can get a perspective. It's probably unaudited. That means that they haven't given the official numbers of spend yet. They go through at the city controller's office and do that. But you can see how much vacancies affect us. So general rules of thumb for the new members are here, but the people who are entering the second half of their term or their second term already know. There's one hard and fast rule about the budget that's unfortunate. You can see in 2024 here that we only spent 66% of our salaries, right? But unfortunately, all you can do with salary money is spend it on salary, right? So you can't transfer any of that salary money down to your operations. Anything below that, right, as you change object codes after the 5,000 section, when you go to the 6,000s, right, now you're in your operational budget. So here, this is just basically saying, this is generally what we're going to spend in these areas, right? But if we have more, if we went over in any one area, you can move from any of these line items in the 6,000s to cover that, right? Or if you, in the alternative, if you're a little bit short, you can take from other areas you know you're not going to spend as much, right? And that happens all the time. So you could see property rental, we went over last year because we signed a new lease that wasn't accounted for, but we had more than enough to cover that in other areas of the budget, so it accommodated for that, right? And property rental is one of our biggest spends. We've been in this office since 2018 here at Perkins, and the cost per square foot is better than you're going to find in anywhere in the city for business-wise. So we have to decide this year because we've had, well, they've already told us we can't do it this year again, even though we started. We have to decide this year what we're going to do next year. There is an appropriation of over $30,000 to move our office, right? That would pay for movers and whatever we needed to do. But someone brought up a good point to me recently, and that is, we know they're not going to increase our operational budget, right? So if we increase our rent $20,000 or $30,000 to have a nicer facility, we're going to have to pay for that from something else. And we don't have a lot else to take that from. So we're going to have to decide as a unit this year if staying here is really as bad as it seems sometimes, right? Yes, it is. People are like, the building is the heat and the air isn't the greatest, the sun's in my face, right? But is it worth $25,000 more to move to a nicer building? Because that $25,000 will most likely come from our discretionary funding, and we'll be stuck. There are no city hall or city buildings available. We already checked. There is no space that can accommodate, so we're going to have to rent somewhere, right? Which means that we put ourselves in a situation where even they second guessed me because I was looking forward to maybe moving because we're growing staff and whatever it may be. But when they brought that up to me, I'm like, you know what? That's a really good point. Is we're going to rob from ourselves in other areas to pay a more expensive lease. And I don't think we've quite outgrown this space yet. We're getting close. So each one of these cubicles costs about $7,000. We have to add one for our new attorney position. When we hire an executive director, when we fill the whatever, either it's backfill assistant director, or I have to move out of that office temporarily to out here as the administrative manager, we need another one. So that's $14,000 just in building cubicles, right? We do have a space downstairs that we haven't unveiled yet, where we're going to do all our community meetings. So no longer will they be here. This will be a business meeting space if you need to do business, but downstairs will be where we host community meetings separate from the offices. So we've already planned for that, to give you a space to work with the community that doesn't have this officey feel. It doesn't interfere with employees who want to do their work while we're having a meeting. So we do have that plan, but that's one of the major budgetary considerations that we'll have to discuss in this committee in the near future.
I have a question, maybe
Sure.
a silly one, but I'm just need clarity. When we have our full commission meetings and we go into different places, do we pay for that, and where did that come from out the budget?
So rarely do we pay. It's always been, we try to use facilities that will either donate that space in kind, or it's a city facility. A lot of times we're in the rec centers. The rec centers, we have to just fill out some forms and paperwork. Occasionally we pay for security at some spaces, like we've been to the library before. The library will charge us a small fee just to cover, IT personnel and security occasionally. But rarely do we pay for that. But there is a line item in there you'll see for special events, I believe it's called. That's where we would typically pay that out of. Yes.
So I do have just a general question. So, for our grantees, how do they work with auditing? Because we have to reconcile our budget,
Yeah.
because we have to do it with the city as well, just like anybody else. How does that work?
So when we vote on a list of grantees, right? So looking at your 2025 budget, right? If we go into a contract again with UBF, right? We know the estimated cost of administrative will be 10% of that, right? So we will subtract for that contract 10% of our allotted grant money, right? If we use UBF again. What the remainder of that is, when you guys vote on your grantee list, that money gets called what's encumbered, right? So it gets set aside in bulk in a safe place, right? And the next step is contracts. Every contract that gets signed gets assigned a value, and that money value comes out of that encumbrance, right? So it'll have multiple contracts, 25 contracts. Now, we have to pay when the grantees submit for either reimbursement or funds in advance. The funds in advance don't go through an audit if it's their first time, right? So these are the people who claimed a hardship where they say, we don't have enough operating funds to spend out. They get a quarter of their budget roughly in advance. But when they're done with that quarter amount, when they want more money to access their second part of that funding, they have to submit all their receipts, all their cleared checks, payroll, whatever is part of their grant. And now we have wonderful Michelle who goes through it with a fine tooth comb to make sure that everything they submit is eligible under what they said and was approved in their contract. So we do go through auditing every single request for a payment, whether it's a reimbursement of money already spent or a reimbursement from money they spent out of their operating budget and then asked us for a reimbursement. So, and we keep records of all that. So they send us the stuff digitally or they bring it in person. We go through it. And then the next step is it also has to pass through accounting. So then we fill out the paperwork, we submit it. And if they catch any red flags, they send it back to us.
So if Michelle catches any red flags, then they won't get the other half of their.
Well, it's not that they won't get the money. Then we start a conversation with them and say, hey, we found this thing. Can you explain it or whatever it may be, right? We don't automatically deny until we find out exactly what we're dealing with. So sometimes it's just, oh, that receipt wasn't meant to be sent here. We've had a lot of situations where we just had to get a little more explanation, but I don't think we've ever actually found a situation where something they submitted wasn't ineligible yet. Usually it's just a misunderstanding and we work through it and then we figure out. Yeah.
So, okay, so we keep them on our file. So there's nothing else that needs to be forwarded. Like when they do our budget, we don't have to send all of that together as like a comprehensive package or.
To the city, no. It's already under contract. So budgets in the city work in advance, right? So they don't, with grant money, they're not doing it for the rest of our budget. What your example is true, right? So normally they plan off of what you spend, right? That's how a budget planning, right. They'll audit it and say, this is how much you spent the last 3 years. And that's kind of what they use as a baseline to reappropriate, right, to you. But with our grants, it doesn't work that way because the charter dictates how much money we get every year. So it's not based on how much we're spending or how much we anticipate to spend. They have to reappropriate according to the charter. The charter says the grant money is roughly 1% or something like that of whatever the police budget is. So once they figure out police budget, we automatically get that money put aside. Yes. Now, do they audit how much we've spent on grants? So if you're asking, can we find out how much grant money has actually made it to the street from 2023, for example? Yes, because every time we submit an invoice, it goes in the accounting system and the accounting system tracks each contract individually, how much has been paid on that contract. So I could look up any grantee and find out exactly how much money they have been appropriated, right, so far in their contract, and then how much total funds we have spent for any given year, 2023 being the only one right now that we can look back, right? But we know we're approaching over $600,000 allocated from our first 2023 under contract, right? but I think it's far less that's been spent so far. We're only, maybe half of that with money that's actually been out in the street yet. But it's been allocated to go. So we're
Okay.
fast approaching. Yes.
Yeah, so, so I'm just seeking clarification, because I know it's 2023, right, and it's 2025.
Yes.
So, will there be a time where, I know that we haven't allotted, that it might go back into the general fund, especially if they're not utilizing it and we pass our contract. So I'm just trying to get a,
That's a good point.
yeah,
So how does money go back to the general fund? If it's been encumbered, it has to be decertified. So we have to initiate that process, right? So there will come a time where we'll present to this committee, right? Right now, we've been working really hard to work with the 2023 grantees and say, basically last call. Either you want this money or you don't, right? Because we did that, several more of them are in the process of entering contracts. That's why you all voted to extend 2023 eligibility, right? But even with those grantees, we might still have a little bit left over, maybe 100,000, maybe a little more than that, right? At that point, when Michelle and I know that, we will come to you and say, this is what we have left from 2023. And this group will decide with counsel from Alex what legally we might be allowed to do with that money, right? Because what we'd like to find a way to do is get it to the street, because that's what it was allocated for, right? For grants, right? So either roll it into 2025 or 26's money, but not just give it back to the general fund, because that's not what the voters wanted to do with that money, right? It was allocated for a specific purpose. So we will do everything we can to find a way to use whatever 2023 money's left for that purpose, if it's legal to do so.
How long do we have to do so?
I don't know the answer to that yet. So right now, as long as it's tucked away, there is no timeline on it. Like I said, we have to tell them to decertify it and put it back. It won't automatically go back. It'll sit there for years encumbered until an auditor calls me and says, hey, what are you going to do with this? Or we call them and say, decertify this money. So yeah, right now it's safe and secure and put away. And
I just want to put a caveat that 2023, is a pilot year and we're learning. And then hopefully, especially working with UBF, that we're working with grantees to ensure that they understand the process and that we'll be able to move smoothly throughout it.
And with the addition of UBF and our new office manager, I think you can talk to the grantees. It was really hard because our office manager was vacant, and then I would try to pick up where they left off, but doing the duties that I had, it wasn't. Now that we have someone solely devoted to it and an organization solely devoted to it, I think we're going to find that, we are going to move much more efficiently and effectively with distribution of money, auditing of money, all of those things. So.
Does anybody else have any further questions?
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, so I don't have any further business, so we can open it to public comment. We have Terry Wong.
I'm sorry I came late because I forgot about this meeting, because of the consent decree conference. So I have a few questions. I would like you to be on public record as to why some of the grantees have not. It doesn't make any sense to me, why they have not pursued these contracts. I want to say for the record that I was the sole commissioner that abstained from these grants during that pilot, because there was too much lack of transparency. I was not even allowed to read one grant. There were grants that I knew that were of substantive quality that were solely rejected by certain commissioners. I hope that that does not happen again. I will disclose also I received community complaints about the United Black Fund's own finances, and I would encourage you to look into these things before you proceed further with the relationship that Mr. Van Leer kind of arbitrarily off the record formed. I do have one other comment about the lawyer situation. It seems that the commission is reproducing the same problems. We were just at a consent decree conference in which the monitor mentioned that having a lawyer on both sides of discipline that that work for the city and work for OPS and CPRB is a conflict of interest. You have the same situation here that you have Alex who works for the city and works for the commission. And I would say that it goes beyond discipline records. You were warned by our independent counsel, truly independent counsel, Mark Wallach, that there are issues with records, conflicts of interest. Basically, anytime you have a conflict that the city resists you on. So I would like to know why we are going down the same path, and we've never had independent counsel. And when I was finally able to secure it with Mark Wallach, the commission, after Mr. Goodrick was overheard by community members trying to control Mr. Wallach, the commission voted Mr. Wallach out. And he is one of the best municipal attorneys in the state. He's fought the police unions when he was younger. So I would like to know why the commission continues to have a lawyer that is partially controlled by the city, especially when this lawyer, Alex, at another meeting attempted to have me prosecuted or pursued for charges for disruption of a meeting. And I have more information that has been given to me about Mr. Alex Noureddin, is that he pursued a retaliatory lawsuit against a Beechwood City Council person that eventually cost Beechwood many, many tens of thousands of dollars. I would like to know for the record who selected him. Mark Griffin told me yesterday it was both a combination of Mr. Goodrick and Mr. Griffin. I do not know if the city was aware of Mr. Noureddin's previous conduct, but I do not think that this type of lawyer who seeks to violate the First Amendment rights of people and violate the First Amendment rights of a former commissioner should be trusted as a lawyer for the commission that has final authority over these matters. Thank you.
Thank you. So as you know, it's best practice that we don't address community. We hear your concerns. We look forward to working with UBF, and we appreciate their efforts as well as all of our staff. Any further business? Hence none, we're going to adjourn the meeting.
Also, you may not